Welcome to the Uncontested podcast, talking Oklahoma City Thunder basketball and the wider NBA.
Sam Presti said, lower the hatch, load up the cannon, and get the tank out rolling.
Catch new episodes after each Thunder game and every Sunday night.
This is a house of learning doctors.
Follow the Uncontested on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to catch new content as it drops.
I mean, a cat and a dog connected together?
This is Lou Dort. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What? Welcome to the Uncontested podcast, coming to you live Halloween night, October 31st. It is I, Jacob Niffen, your host tonight. It's a two-man game. We've got Taylor Peterson along for the ride.
The Josh Giddey SGA game. Happy Halloween, Jacob. And most importantly, congratulations.
Yes. Happy spooky season.
The married life. How's it feeling?
Bang.
Oh, you got the ring.
It feels just like pre-married life.
Exactly.
Nothing has changed.
Nothing changed except the ring on your finger. But hey, that's exciting.
Allie, we got married at 3 p.m. We had a party at 7 p.m. Allie had the stomach bug at 10 p.m.
Oh.
So here we are.
Welcome to marriage. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. So thanks for all the shout outs and everything from everybody on Twitter. Much appreciated. Taylor and I going the two-man game tonight. Before we dive into some basketball, I'd like to let you guys know that we are proudly part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, the official podcast of SI Thunder. Taylor, before we dive into some bigger themes, let's do a quick recap of the week.
Let's do it.
The Thunder started this week playing the Golden State Warriors Tuesday night. Was it Tuesday night?
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. At home. Second home game of the season. They're all bleeding together now. Thunder lose at 106-98 in a fairly competitive game. They were leading the Warriors for a while and just kind of slipped up down the stretch. Kind of felt like the Thunder ran out of gas. They followed that performance up with their first one of the season. Taylor and I post-game podcasted after this one. A win versus the Los Angeles Lakers, 123 to 115.
Second night of a back-to-back, too.
Yes. An impressive win
legs
for the Thunder. Great for them. They were getting the break speed off of them early and just came storming back, specifically on the back of a massive Shai Gilgeous-Alexander third quarter. If you want the breakdown of that game, highly suggest that you go and listen to Taylor and I's post-game after that. Taylor, on that, we didn't dive too much into the whole Russell Westbrook getting pissed off after Darius Baisley dunks the basketball. A lot of irony there.
A lot of irony. Him doing it, I tweeted this out from our account the next morning, but like the side-by-side image of him originally, against Kevin Durant, that same look, right? And him looking at KD and pointing, go, I'm coming. Yeah. And then this. And then also, I want to say it was Joe Masato, but I could be making that up. I don't want to misquote that. But somebody put out an article and or tweet out an image of an old article talking about Russ doing something similar in a game against Sacramento back in 2012 or something like that.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of irony there. Right. Yep. Kind of funny.
The Thunder wrapped up the week out in California. They played in Golden State on Saturday. Not a fun one. 82 to 103. The Thunder made it competitive in the second quarter, but then the third quarter came out, and I think Steph hit 3 threes in 2 minutes, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin. Some other Thunder news throughout the week, Taylor. The OKC Blue played their a preseason scrimmage that Trey Mann was assigned to.
He was. I didn't realize he played in that scrimmage.
Yes, he got sent down to the G League and played in that scrimmage along with Vít Krejci. Surprised that Trey got sent down to play in the G League game and not go out to the West Coast with the Thunder, Taylor.
Yep. A little bit for sure, especially because, we mentioned this year being the year, I think, to get some of those guys some burn, especially, and we talked a lot about this on our Wednesday night podcast, but Teo Maladone getting all the minutes that he did compared to guys like a Ty Jerome and even a Trey Mann. But for what it's worth, Daigneault did come out and say in a one of his press availabilities that he had that he talked to Trey about this before the Utah game. So that's the season opener. And they knew all along this was going to be the plan for him. And he even mentioned him being Daigneault brought up a really good point that, this is the first full regular season for the Blue in 2 years, right? Because you had obviously COVID and then also like the weird bubble last season. And he mentioned that if the Blue would have been here in OKC this past season, we would have seen guys like Teo and Poku a little more. And there's one other player who didn't play last year. Ty Jerome did play with the Blue or was rehabbing with the Blue, but there was one other player he mentioned as well that would have gotten some time with the Blue last season that was on this team instead because of the whole bubble situation. So all that to say, I think they're going to be utilizing it pretty heavy. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think Giddey would go, but like seeing I don't know, maybe JRE goes back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing JRE or Giddey based off their start going, but
yeah,
I had a bet at the beginning of the season with, I can't remember if you or Justin took it, that Trey Mann would play more G League games than Thunder games.
Yep.
And I wasn't feeling good about it, and now I'm kind of swinging the pendulum back to the other way. I don't want Giddey. I don't want Trey to play a bunch of G League games. But I think that's a good place for him to find his rhythm and a good place for him to play with the ball in his hands a whole lot.
I think, and again, somebody else tweeted this and was talking about this as well, but we're going to see a lot of, and we've talked about this on our podcast, guys playing for both teams on the same night, right? Like, especially with them playing in the Paycom. And there's some quote unquote double headers coming up for the Blue. And
the first one of those being this coming Sunday. OKC Blue plays at 11 a.m. A week from tonight, and then the Thunder a week from today, and then the Thunder play at 6 p.m. that night.
Perfect. So we could see the first ever NBA player play in a G League game and a NBA game in the same game.
Same 24 hours,
same day. So I'm definitely curious.
That'll
to see
be interesting.
That as well.
We're hoping to be out at the G League this season as well, and so you guys can look forward to our coverage out there. Super excited about that. So. Taylor, only other thing I think Thunder related for us to talk about before we dive into some of our plans for tonight's show. There is a lot of national media that are not a fan of the way the Thunder are going about rebuilding their team.
And it became a hot topic this week for sure. And it, as Thunder fans and even just as people, trying to be as unbiased as we possibly can covering the team, was very frustrating. Again, a lot of takes, I think, being thrown out there that A, weren't accurate, information that wasn't accurate.
Fake news.
B, I think some of the original stuff that was coming out earlier in the week was authentic. I would say some of the takes that were coming out towards the latter part of the week were not authentic. It was more so people throwing out takes, trying to, A, create conversation, B, they're tired of talking about Kyrie and Ben Simmons, and this was something new. Because, we can't just talk about basketball, the actual game being played these days. It's all about the other stuff going on. So This was another topic and a way for people to get clicks and listens and views, right?
Yeah, and just really uneducated takes as well. Just firing from the hip, I think willful ignorance is probably the right way to put this.
Right.
That people just don't want to understand or look critically at what the Thunder are doing as far as a rebuild is concerned.
Right.
And
I think a lot of it is like, go be a good little small market and just stay in the middle where you belong, the middle of the NBA where you belong.
I think there's also a lot of anger from people for some reason about the idea of hoarding draft picks.
Yeah.
I think there's like this mantra of like, oh, the Thunder have so many draft picks. Why do they need a tank to get their own pick?
Right.
It's like, well, that's the only one you can control, and a lot of the other ones are protected.
Well, and there's been a lot of praise thrown Presti's way, right? So there's people getting a little bit annoyed about that. And the other thing too is
why are they celebrating him losing?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and it's exactly. It's like, man, you have to look at this thing like rationally. You have to like understand that there is a plan and they're executing the plan. I think some people get mad because they think the Thunder are purposely losing. Like Sam Presti has armed this coaching staff with a lot of young guys who probably aren't going to contribute to winning. But it's not like Mark I mean, if Mark Daignault was trying to make the team lose every game to get a top pick, he'd be starting Gabby Deck.
Trey Mann would not be in the G League.
Yeah, he'd be starting Gabby Deck, and he'd be starting Isaiah Roby, and he would be starting Derek Favors. Like, he wouldn't be limiting his rotation in a game against the Los Angeles Lakers to try to win a basketball game. You know, the players aren't trying to tank. The coaching staff isn't trying to tank. It's not like the front office is saying, hey, go out there and throw games. Instead, they're saying, hey, here's a lot of young guys that we think are going to be good for us for a long time. Have them go out and try to win games. They're probably not going to be great at it this year, but give them an opportunity to learn and grow from it.
Some of these players too, right? Like
Presti
talked a ton, and Daignault both talked a ton about that preseason and during the season so far, about kind of setting a baseline, seeing what you have in some of these players when you do start to take that next step, right? And I think you bring up a good point. I've had coworkers reaching out to me. I've had friends who are more casual fans reach out to me throughout the season so far, and I keep telling them the exact same thing. Like Presti, I mean, I think the prime example is not really having a quote unquote true center. You have Derek Favors, who's not even starting all the time. JRE
who's been not very good.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Especially at this point in his career. That right there is going to lose you a bunch of basketball games, but that allows you to be able to throw Shea out there and let him go off. And a lot of nights still probably won't be enough. That allows guys like Josh Giddey to go out and overperform and exceed expectations so early. And you're still going to lose those games, not find yourself where you were at this point last season. Although it seems already like they maybe got a great pick with Josh Giddey. But all that to say, you can get one of those top guys that will change your franchise, and you can take that next step towards building another contender. But I also think too, Jacob, and I will say this, the Saturday Slam and Jam on the Athletic Show, Andrew Schlecht and Alex Spears did a great job. Encourage you guys all to go and listen to that. They made some really good points. I think the only thing I would add on to what they said, especially because I know we're not going to spend as much time on it here as they did there. But I just think back to the history of OKC. And look, this even, I think a lot of people were reacting to the Athletic podcast that dropped on Friday, where Mo, I can't remember his last name, day before, there was a group of them who were talking about this and we're kind of trashing OKC.
I have a thought on that whenever you're done. So,
and Mo even mentioned the whole Seattle thing. He almost like Freudian slip, right? And I keep thinking back to the early days, and everybody's like, OKC doesn't deserve a team. They stole that team from Seattle. You have that. I think about the whole Russ situation, right? Where we were all on Russ's side and it was Russ against the world, and people really didn't like that. Russ became the face of the franchise for a long extended period. And fans were I think NBA fans, NBA media were kind of against that and still hold that against OKC. There's a lot of animosity there that's carried over. So now they're seeing this. They're seeing a small market do something unconventional in a different way that really hasn't been done before. I know the process Sixers get brought up. There's other teams that have tanked before. But like you mentioned, Jacob, all these draft picks that Sam Presti's hoarding, it's different.
Yeah.
And people don't necessarily like that. They don't like that the Thunder had early success after quote unquote stealing the team. They don't like the whole Russ against the world thing, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of that, I think, going on as well. It's just another thing to poke at OKC. They don't really like that we have a team.
Yeah. I think that's part of it. And it's just frustrating that you don't hear this hand wringing and this bitching about teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Sacramento Kings or the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Houston Rockets or the New Orleans Pelicans,
the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah,
before
exactly.
They got
it's the Thunder have a clear direction and a clear plan and what they're doing and the direction they're going, and they're executing that plan. And it's tell me what the plan in Cleveland is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Or what the plan in Sacramento.
I mean, Cleveland just signed 4 power forward / centers, and it's playing Lauri Markkanen at the 3, and nobody knows what they plan on doing with Colin Sexton because they were shopping him, then they weren't shopping him, and it seems like there's no clear direction. They have a GM that's on the hot seat that everyone thinks is going to be the first guy to get fired this year. At least the Thunder have drawn up the plan and know what they're aiming for. It's like everyone wants to make it to the championship, right? Everyone my analogy is like everybody wants to make it to the restaurant for dinner, but Presti typed the restaurant in on his Apple Maps on his phone and has clear turn-by-turn directions knowing how to get there. And people are bitching that he's like just now leaving the house.
Yeah.
Whereas the Sacramento Kings and the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Minnesota Timberwolves and
Have
the
been
Houston
stuck
Rockets,
in traffic for years.
yeah, and they didn't type the address in on their phone, and they're in a city they've never been in, and they're just freaking cruising, saying, well, maybe we'll find it. Maybe we'll just randomly pass it. You know, it's like throwing darts blindfolded versus Presti taking his methodical time looking on the scope
Right.
of a gun.
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's just very frustrating. Like, this front office has done everything right. They've been shrewd. They've made the right moves.
They've been great
They,
to
they
players.
try to win every trade just by a little bit. They try to leverage everything they have versus just like doing random weird shit that doesn't make sense, which is like what
Right.
Cleveland does and like what Houston does.
They build
I mean,
relationships. They
Yeah.
build relationships
I mean,
with agents, with players,
why don't
with-
I hear people bitching about the Houston Rockets? I guess just because they got Jalen Green and they got lucky on the ping pong balls. I mean, the Houston Rockets traded James Harden for a handful of picks that are probably going to be in the 20s.
Yep.
And Victor Oladipo, who they kept for 2 months and then flipped for Kelly Olynyk, who then didn't re-sign.
Yep.
You know, it's like,
Or the Detroit Pistons, who were stuck in the NBA middle, towards the bottom of the middle for a
yeah,
very long
and then got
time.
lucky on
And
some
now they're
dice
going
rolls
through a rebuild
on some
because
ping pong balls
Troy Weaver came in and he's trying to implement a similar process
and did the
But
same
they
thing.
landed Cade.
Yeah.
And so it's a little different. Right. But
Orlando
you
last
know
season
what?
traded away all of their best players for draft picks to try to bottom
Right.
out, but nobody bitches about Orlando, and so
Right.
it's very frustrating. The
And the
people
other
that
thing,
listen to
too,
this
is, like-
podcast like understand where we're coming from, though.
Right.
I don't think you and I continuing to complain
Preaching
about
to the
this is
choir a
going
little
to change anybody's opinion.
I will say one point, though, that I don't think is brought up a ton. These people, national media, whatever, they keep mentioning SGA. And I think there's a lot of, look, this is just the way it is. Those media, those media personalities were like rooting and fist pumping when Kevin Durant left and went to the Warriors, right? So like you have a talent like SGA, they selfishly want him in a bigger market or want them on their team, right? And there's a lot of that as well. If
Yeah,
you don't
the
have
whole,
SGA, this doesn't get attention like
The
it
blue
is.
check mark saying like, when is SGA going to ask out? Same person needs to trade him now. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, you
Right.
don't think they have had communication?
Yeah, his agent is Russell Westbrook's agent
Yeah, and Lou Dort's
and Lou
agent.
Dort's agent, and I mentioned the same.
Like, you
guys. They
think
mentioned
that
Lou went
SGA is
undrafted
just
and
walking
basically got to pick
around
his
blind,
team.
just saying, I have no clue what the hell's going to go on.
Yeah,
I'll
right.
sign this contract, sure. Like,
Right.
miss me with that bullshit, man. Just
Yep,
miss me with
yep.
it. Okay,
It's lazy
let's
and it's
stop
selfish.
complaining because I'm getting angry, and I don't want to get angry on this podcast. Taylor, we're going to play a game called True or False.
I like
It's
it.
a really simple game. It's like kind of like you're taking a test. You notice how a lot of my games are teacher themed.
Yeah. I think
It's like
it's very applicable.
It's like I bleed my profession into the podcast.
You
So it's
do
like
this
your
for a
old
living.
school true or false test. I'm going to give you a statement. You need to tell me if that statement is true or false. You also need to tell me why. All right.
Okay.
And then we'll see if we agree or disagree on these. Are you ready to go?
Yes. I really quickly am pulling up OKC Thunder stat leaders on NBA.com. Or actually, I just want the team leaders. Team stats. All right. Yeah, player stats ready.
All right. Beautiful. I am also getting some statistics pulled up. Our first true or false question, Taylor. 4 Thunder players will average double-digit points all season long. For the record, there are currently 4 Thunder players averaging double-digit points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is at 22 even. Lou is at 11.7 points a game. Josh is at 10.7 points a game. Darius Baisley at 10 points per game. So at the end of the season, will the Thunder have 4 players averaging double figures in points?
Whew. So this one, this is a really good one. You let off with. I was going to list those 4 players, as evidence, but you already looked into this, and that's the reason you came up with this one. It's a really good one. I'm torn. I would say the reason I am torn right now is because I see that Darius Baisley average of 10 points per game right now, and I'm very curious how that lasts into the season. Does it? It would be bad if it went down, right? But at the same time, if he continues to get the playing time, it probably stays there. Because I absolutely think Lou will continue to average double-digit points. I absolutely think Josh Giddey will. In fact, I'm willing to go bold enough here, maybe an overreaction to a limited sample size, and say that Josh Giddey will be the second leading scorer on this team behind SGA this season.
I don't think
And
that's
obviously
that's a
SGA.
stretch.
That's even too hot. Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
mentioned Darius Baisley kind of being the swing factor there because I think the other three
Exactly.
are for
Are
sure
pretty
over 10
solid
points a game.
locks. Agreed.
Baisley's averaging 10 points even on 37% from the field and 17% from three.
17% from three. I
That's
need his
bad. On
attempts.
5
I don't
attempts a
have his
game.
attempts here. 5, okay.
4.8 attempts a game. It's very bad. So, Taylor, 4 players averaging double figures. Is it true or false?
I think it's true. Just because I think, and we didn't get to do a post game after last night's game, but Baisley really struggled, and especially compared to a really good game he had. 2-3 nights ago against LA.
Arguably his best game of his career came against the
Correct.
Lakers.
We mentioned
and then
that. Yeah,
game comes out. It wasn't just that he missed shots against Golden State. It was
entire
this sense of disengagement defensively, not just. There was a play where he and Josh switched a screen, and then Darius just kind of stood there at the free throw line, and his man popped back out and caught the ball at the 3-point line. Then he said, "Oh, maybe I should go cover that guy," and gets a 3 splash in his face. And it's the inconsistencies of Darius Baisley that we've talked about for so long. You don't know. I mean, again, that Lakers game was his best game of his career. How he defended Anthony Davis, how he ran the floor, how he
scored over Anthony Davis.
Yeah, hit, catch, and shoot threes. He played within himself. And then on Saturday, it was back to ball stopping again.
Exactly.
It was back to disengaged defense. It's like, I don't know how much longer he starts if you can't trust and know what you're going to get from him night in and night out.
Exactly. And I wanted to mention that. I'm glad you talked about that. A, because we didn't get to talk about it last night, but B, because I think that factors into this. The Thunder really like and are invested in Darius Baisley. I think they're going to be for the entirety of the season. Now, if he continues to have games like he did last night against Golden State, he might not get that extension, might only, get the qualifying offer for one additional year, whatever. All that being said, I think they're going to give him the benefit of the doubt the majority of the season. He's going to get a lot of burn. And because of that, I think he stays above double digits points per game.
Interesting. I kind of think.
And it's going to be frustrating for you, me, as Thunder fans, right?
I think if he is still on this team after the February trade deadline, he's getting a contract extension next summer.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that might be frustrating. Again, that might be, I don't know if we'll see a ton. I hope we do. We might not see a ton of improvement there, but like to your point, that's when I think we're going to be clamoring for like Poku, guys of that nature, get these minutes.
Let's say Baisley does drop below 10 points a game and gets traded or gets benched or something. Who is the next player on the team you think is most likely to jump up above 10 points per game? The closest ones, Mike Muscala is at 8.3 right now.
Yeah.
Kenrich at 6.8. JRE at 6.2. Favors at 5.8. Roby at 5.2. Alexei at 5.
I think the most likely one would be JRE because, as we've seen, he's already getting some starting nods when they decide to either rest or like semi-rest Favors, where they don't rest him for the game. He's active, but he's not starting, right? JRE, I think, would take. And Mark's mentioned the idea of playing JRE alongside a true big, like a Favors or whoever they throw out there.
Not to get you off topic here, but Favors has been bad,
real bad.
Like there was a play in last night's game where Josh drove into the paint.
Oh my
and
gosh,
drew the defense and dropped a beautiful little drop off pass to Favors, wide open. Dude didn't dunk it, tried to just bunny hop and couldn't even get the ball over the rim.
And didn't even get, it was awful.
Very frustrating. Very frustrating.
I mean, another topic. Josh Giddey, I think, is like third in assists of all rookies right now and could be like so much more. I think Matt Moore.
He's only third in all rookies?
Maybe I'm making that up. That might be where he's first. I thought first was rebounds, but
I think
first or
he's
second.
Got to be first.
But he's top 25 in the league in assists, and that's like, can you imagine if he actually had players who could make some of those? Anyway, sorry. I would say JRE would be the most likely candidate next if Baisley does get bench traded, etc.
I like that a lot. All right,
taking true.
Next one, true or false? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will average 7 3-point attempts per game this season. That's where he is at right now, 7 3-pointers a game, currently shooting 33.3%.
This one's a little tough too. I guess just kind of tie in last night's game. Like I said, since we didn't really break it down last night in a separate podcast, like the one thing I've noticed from Shea, and this is a lot of trying to fill everything out, right? Like when we were bringing in additional talent, like a Josh Giddey, for example, Shea's trying to have to fill that out and learn how to play alongside him. And so there was games like the very first game against the Jazz. There was games like last night where Shea isn't nearly as aggressive as I would like for him to be, right? 15 points. He still had one of the, I think, some of the most shot attempts on the team. I'm pulling up the box score right now. Here it is. Yeah, 14 shot attempts. But like Shea should be shooting the ball close to 20 times. We mentioned that last year as well. That was a knock on him until he really got it going there and was doing that pretty consistently. I want to see that again. And so I do worry a little bit about that, but I'm still going to say yes, true. He does average more than 7 threes a game, because even last night, only shooting the ball 14 times, 50% of those, 7 of those were from 3. He was 2 of 7. That 3-point shot isn't consistent right now, but I love seeing him shoot at least 7 of those. I just would like to see him get more drives to the rim as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go more than 7, or at least at 7 per game for the rest of the way for Shea. I think he's developed a lot there. They haven't all dropped in yet, but he's getting better and better at them.
Yep.
Let's stay on the topic of 3-point shots. True or false? Josh Giddey will end the season shooting at least 33.3% from the 3-point line. That is where he is currently at right now. He takes 2.5 a game. He's making 1 out of every 3, 33.3%. Will Josh finish there or above? That would be true. He at least finishes there. Or is it false? He's going to drop below that.
I don't want to keep saying true for every single one of these, but when you throw at least in there, I think that's correct, because we've seen him get some just wide open attempts. Obviously, that percentage is not good enough for defenders to consistently guard him out there, especially with how, honestly, I'm going to go ahead and say it, elite that he is driving to the rim for a rookie in this league. And so because of that, I think they're going to be packing the paint when you have guys like Josh Giddey and honestly even Lou and Shea. Like, I don't know. I think Josh is going to get a lot of wide open looks. Because of that, I think he will knock some of those down. The shot looks good. The motion looks good. He does get rushed sometimes still, but I think he'll continue to hone that in. The only way I think that could be false is if we do see, for example, Shea get injured, Lou get injured, Shea sits, whatever it may be later in the season, and Josh is just getting like a ton of time, a ton of minutes. And then maybe he just starts like hoisting 3-pointers and doesn't get him to fall. But I still think that's going to be a true.
Yeah, I'm going to go true on this, just barely. I think he could be at like 34%, because I don't think he will hoist. I think he is very, very mature and he makes the right play every time. And so it's hard for me to see him ever forcing shots and forcing bad shots. And so I think the threes he takes will be good 3-point shots.
That's a good
point. I think that will help his percentage out. Next one, Alexei Pokusevski. Will he average, true or false? He will average at least 14 minutes a game this season, which is where he is at right now, 13.9 games or minutes per game. Will he average at least that this season? True or false?
At least that, yes, true. I'm just going. I think he's going to average quite a bit more than that, just because I think later on in the season they're going to give Poku a lot of burn. They're going to get a lot of these young guys a lot of burn once I think the G League blue season is over. So I'm going true, and the reason I'm going true is because I think we'll be looking closer like between 16 to 18 minutes by the time the season's over, just because those guys are going to get priority minutes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also question if guys like Darius Baisley will be on this team not Darius Baisley, maybe Darius Baisley, but Derek Favors will be on this team long term. If he's not, then you're pretty much solely playing Jeremiah Robinson Earl at the 5, which opens up more minutes in that front court for Alexei Pokusevski. Right. I think this is true as well. He will average more than 14 minutes a game. All right, next one, Taylor. Jeremiah Robinson Earl will have the highest minutes per game of all the centers on the roster. Ooh. So that would be Derek Favors, JRE, Mike Muscala, and Isaiah Roby. He is currently in second place on this. Favors averages 17 minutes a game. Robinson Earl averages 16.6. Muscala 15.1. And Roby 10.3. This true or false is Jeremiah Robinson Earl will average the most minutes per game of any of the centers on roster.
Yep. That is tough because if basically I have to decide now if I think Favors is going to be traded or not. If he is traded, or maybe that's false as well, because later on the season they could just agree to rest Favors.
Yeah, or he just doesn't play a lot because he's not good.
Yeah, honestly, that's fair as well. Gosh, I don't want to keep saying true, but I feel like I have to here, especially after I told you that if Baisley dips below 10 points per game, that I thought JRE was the best candidate to be the fourth player and averaging double-digit points per game. So I think I have to go true again, just based off that.
Can I take a minute and talk about Jeremiah Robinson Earl?
Yeah, absolutely. We have plenty of time.
A few things I've noticed. Number one, it became very evident to me in that Golden State game, and maybe it was just a bad matchup, but he moves defensively so much better than Derek Favors does. Derek Favors, whenever he got in against Golden State, every ball screen, he dropped like a ridiculous amount to where the ball handler could come off the screen set by Looney or Draymond Green, kind of get to that midi range and hit like a little pull-up. And Favors is in no place to contest it, where I think Robinson Earl is just more versatile defensively. He can hedge, he can switch, and he can drop. And I think it's not by coincidence that the 2 games Jeremiah Robinson Earl has started are the 2 games that they've played against the Golden State Warriors. Really the only team that doesn't have like a quote unquote dominant big man, right? The first game against the season, the Utah Jazz, they had Rudy Gobert. The Los Angeles Lakers have massive dudes, including Anthony Davis. The Houston Rockets have Christian Wood, who's like very versatile. I think maybe they should have started Jeremiah Robinson Earl there. And that's maybe the counterpoint to my argument. But it feels like whenever they haven't had to play an elite big man, they start JRE. When they do play an elite big man, they start Derek Favors.
Just for the physical strength and the size.
Yeah, and the size. Yeah.
Now, but I agree with you completely. And to your point, we've seen, I think, what JRE is able to bring to that starting lineup. He's strong enough to kind of bang with some of those bigger centers, like you mentioned. Being undersized, he still is very defensively sound when it comes to playing bigger offensive players. He has great instincts, obviously, but the biggest thing is he spaces the floor in the offensive end while still being able to hold up defensively. And we've seen what that can do for guys like Shea. And,
that's why you're seeing like Mike Muscala start to get more minutes, because they want to space the floor and give guys like Josh and Shea driving lanes. Let them get to the basket and make stuff happen. Totally agree.
Completely.
All right, Taylor, next one. Josh Giddey ends the season 7th or worse on this team in usage. He is at 7th right now, and I will get that list pulled up if you give me just a second.
7th or worse in usage. I think I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be my first false. I think he's going to be very high up there in terms of usage, especially later on the season. We're already seeing him so far basically force Dagnall's hand and giving him more minutes. Jacob, you and I talked about, or we were kind of messaging back and forth on our Slack about Teo Maledon last night. Only ends up, after we talked about this on Wednesday's postgame pod, where he got a lot of burn against the Lakers, sometimes to the detriment of the team, a little bit of a Lakers comeback there. Last night, he only gets 8 minutes, while Josh Giddey ends up with 27, only 1 minute less than Shea, and the same exact minutes played as Baisley. So basically tied for the 3rd highest on the team with Baisley. I think we're going to continue to see that. And again, that's just because Giddey's exceeded expectations. I think that even the coaching staff had for him this early on, and basically just like you have to play him. So I think his usage rate is going to be pretty high, especially if we see games where I mentioned this earlier in the podcast where Shea does maybe rest or is maybe just like a little dinged up. So he takes like 2 games off. The ball's going to be in Giddey's hands almost the entire game in that instance. Yeah. And so I think because of that usage rate is going to go quite a bit up.
Let me ask you this. Do you have usage pulled up right now for the Thunder?
I do not.
Okay, don't do it. Don't do it.
Good.
Shea leads the team in usage at 27.5%. Okay. That means 27.5% of Shea's possessions result in either a made basket by Shea, free throws by Shea, or an assist by Shea.
So that doesn't surprise me. What does surprise me is that taking that true or false into consideration, that Giddey's 7th in usage.
Yeah.
I didn't
Can you
realize it was
guess who
that
number
low.
2 is? And minutes don't matter. It's just the
Okay.
percentage of the possessions that you're on the court ending in you shooting, free throwing, or assisting.
Well, before you said that, I was going to say Baisley, but since you put it that way, I think it's going to be a player who hasn't played a ton. Oh, man.
Who offensively on this team? Whenever Poku is number 2 at 21.3%. Can you?
Wow.
There's no way you'll get number 3. There's no way.
No way.
I mean, I guess you have a 1 in 13 chance now. One in 12 chance because you've rolled out Shea, Poku, and Giddey.
Gabe Deck. Something
Isaiah
wild like
Roby is number 3, 21% usage.
That's weird.
Baisley is 4 at 20% usage.
I knew Baisley was going to be high. Yeah.
Trey Mann and Lou Dort are tied at 19.5% usage, and then Josh Giddey is at 19.3.
Wow. Interesting. That's fun.
Mm-hmm. I think
Very
some
fun.
of those usage numbers are kind of skewed. Like people who miss shots off Giddey assists, those don't end up as in Giddey's usage. So, last true or false for you, Taylor. SGA and Josh Giddey both end the season averaging at least 9 potential assists per game.
Oh, okay. Hey, can you tell me what both of them are at right now?
Yes, I'm getting it pulled up. Give me just
sorry.
a second.
Thanks,
Let's go to some tracking stats. I looked it up earlier and I didn't write it down, and I should have.
Okay.
Tracking stats, passing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. We will run it. Potential assist.
Okay.
Josh Giddey is at 8.8. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is at 8.7.
Ooh.
The true false says they will both end at 9 or more.
I'm going to say false.
Okay.
And the reason being, and this is just maybe just kind of what I want compared to what might actually happen, but what I think will happen is when Shai and Giddey do both get more comfortable playing alongside each other, I think what you really want to see is Giddey being the distributor, the creator, the primary creator. Not that you don't want the ball in Shai's hands. Don't get me wrong. I think he's still going to have plenty of opportunity with the ball in his hands. But I think Giddey is going to be kind of the guy setting others up, kind of like the Chris Paul and Shai combo, right? And Shai's going to be kind of the de facto scorer. So because of that, I don't think Shai will get there. I think Giddey will.
Interesting statistic. They are basically the same in potential assists, but Giddey has 2 more actual assists than Shai per game. That tells me that people aren't making shots based off Shai assists, and they are off Giddey assists.
That's a good point.
Kind of interesting.
Very interesting.
Giddey is also at 12.7 assist points created per game. So that means Giddey creates 12.7 points per game off his assists. That is up there with Brandon Ingram, same area as D'Angelo Russell, Marcus Smart, Bradley Beal, Kevin Porter Jr. He's in that range as far as points created off assists per game.
That makes sense. I totally can see that. Also, I pull up that image I was referencing earlier. You're right, Jacob. He is first in assists. It was the rebounds where he was third.
That's impressive.
Points at 10.8, he's 7th. Rebounds at 6.2, he's 3rd amongst rookies in the league. Assists, like I said, he's first, 5.6 assists. 1.4 steals is actually 2nd amongst all rookies. And this is kind of the crazy stat for me. So take in mind all those that I just mentioned. Very, very impressive list. He's 7th amongst rookies in playing time at 28.2 minutes per game.
There
if
you
that
go.
goes up, I think a lot of those stats go up as well. So that's really a lot of those averages.
100%. All right, that's the end of your test, Taylor. Good job. You passed your true false test. Let's we said we were going to bust it out at the beginning of the season, so we got to do it. It's time for the tank meter.
Love it.
Loser! You're a loser!
And that means that the number 1 pick in the NBA draft goes to...
All right, Taylor, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being that this team is in full-blown tank mode, 1 being that they're making a playoff push, where would you put the Thunder tank after this last week?
1, being that the tank is completely full. Like, I'm talking somebody's filling up their car.
No, you got it backwards. Station. 10 is completely full. 1 is playoff push.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, then 10. Yes. At 10, absolutely full. And that might seem a little strange after the Thunder did win a game this past week. But the reason I would put it at like basically overflowing is because, again, this is what we talked about this at the top of the podcast. This is what some of these national media people don't understand. Like, I think this is what you want to see with this tank. These young guys were rewarded with a win against a really good Los Angeles Lakers team. Granted, LeBron wasn't playing, but still a sound team. They were able to get a win, but they still went 1-2 on the week. And that right there is going to keep you, I think, where you want to be come lottery picks, while also keeping these young guys engaged and not down on themselves and optimistic and excited. We're seeing player development, win. So because of that, very, very full tank. That's the tank that the Thunder and Presti are going towards, not the Sixers process where you lose every game, everybody has their heads down, Nerlens Noel is pissed off and disengaged, etc.
I think that's fair. I'd probably put it at an 8 this week just because they did win. Not that, winning is bad, but when you are a tanking team and you beat the Los Angeles Lakers, that's not exactly according to plan. But I also think, the tank is technically for what the Oklahoma City Thunder are doing. But, Taylor, the unprotected Los Angeles Clippers pick. The Clippers are currently 1-4.
Yes.
1-4.
Just a black eye to the league, Jacob.
And those two teams will play again tomorrow. As of right now, on the Tankathon sim, the Thunder are tied for the second best odds. Sorry, no, they're in sole position of the second best odds. I don't know. The Thunder are at 1-5. There are 3 teams at 1-6. The Clippers are at 1-4. I know we're only 2 weeks into the season, but screw it. I'm hitting that spin button. And the Thunder end up with like 2-6 on that first spin. Oh God, that next spin is bad. 6-9. Nice, but not
very
really
nice, but not nice.
Spin it again, 6-8. Spin it again, 1-8.
Yeah, not ideal. There's some good ones there.
Yeah, I don't think that Clippers pick is going to end up being that bad.
I don't either. But I will say this:
you have to be happy that the Clippers season has started off so poorly,
right?
Because that's just better and better and better for the Thunder. And for Thunder fans that are already tracking like lottery balls, I think tomorrow night, Oklahoma City versus Los Angeles Clippers out in LA. By the way, I will have the post game tomorrow night. I don't know if I'll go live because that'll be at midnight local time. I don't know who's going to stay up and watch that, but I will have a post game pod for you guys. I think you want the Thunder to win tomorrow because the Thunder aren't going to have problems losing games the rest of the way. So you want to get the Clippers as much losses as possible.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we don't have to worry. Like the Thunder are going to end up bottom 3 record in the league, regardless if they win tomorrow or not. The Clippers, a couple losses here and there that they shouldn't get, maybe bounces them into the lottery, and that's all that the Thunder can ask for. So Thunder fans, you want to root loud and proud. If you're already focused on lottery balls, you want to root loud and proud for the Thunder to win in LA tomorrow night.
I like that a lot. And I was just going to say in terms of the Clippers, like, and Jacob, I can't remember what game this was. Maybe you remember. But the Clippers played a game this past week where PG had 40 plus and was like, what do you call it? His MVP season, aka when he finished third in MVP voting. Kind of funny. Anyways, just like an all out PG OKC Thunder PG game, and the Clippers still lost, which is a good sign, I think, for Thunder fans, unless Kawhi miraculously comes back earlier than expected.
Yeah, no, and I don't think that's happening.
Agreed.
I do not think that's happening. All right, Taylor, let's take a short trip around the association before we get out of here.
Cool.
I don't even know where you're sitting at.
Taylor, some interesting things going on in the league as far as standings are concerned. The New York Knicks, Chicago Bulls,
Bing
Washington
bong.
Wizards, and the Miami Heat are all tied for the number 1 seed in the East at 5-1.
As expected.
Out of all of those, which one is the most surprising?
Ooh,
I think it's
honestly,
pretty simple for me. It's the Washington Wizards.
yeah, I agree. I was gonna say, can I cheat and say that number 5 is a team that's 5-2. They just played one more game. The Charlotte Hornets,
Yeah,
are right up there with me as well. But I agree. The Wizards being 5-1 is surprising. Although there was a lot of talk, I will say there was a lot of talk preseason that the way that this roster was constructed after the Russ trade, while it doesn't have the same star power, it might be better suited to win more regular season games. And I
a
think
lot of
that's,
depth. We talked
so
about
far, it
this
looks good. Yeah.
in the offseason. Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. Number 15 in the East, the Indiana Pacers.
Ooh.
What's more surprising, that the Washington Wizards are tied in a 4-way tie for the number 1 seed, or that the Indiana Pacers are dead last in the East?
I think that the just because of what I mentioned, the reasoning to why I wasn't completely shocked by the Wizards being as high as they are so far, it's got to be the Pacers for me. I mean, bring Domas home.
I would love that. I would love
too.
that. I'm
I
a
would
huge
too.
fan of.
But no, it very surprising.
Almost kind of
Brogdon-
fits everything that this Thunder team wants to build too. High IQ, great passer,
Yep.
floor spacer
Lob finisher for Giddy
from Europe.
and SGA from Europe. Yes.
It all kind of
I mean,
fits.
kind of from Europe, but yes.
Yeah, it all kind of fits.
It does. I like that. But no, it's certainly surprising. Especially with, why am I going blank on the old Dallas Mavericks coach name? Why is it escaping
Rick
me?
Carlisle.
Rick Carlisle, thank you. Yeah. Thought he would have more success early on at coaching some of that young talent. So I don't know. They are finally getting completely healthy. They have Karis LeVert back now. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, very, very surprising to see them down there with the Magic and the Pistons. Just a black eye of the NBA, Jacob. Black eye.
Yes. Hey, so the Western Conference, 2 teams tied for the number 1 seed, the Utah Jazz and the Golden State Warriors. Either of those surprise you?
No, because I had the Jazz up high preseason, and I think you and I both had the Warriors up pretty high, but you had them even higher than I did.
Hey,
So this kind of goes with what you had predicted.
the
heading into
Warriors
the season.
being 5-1 and Clay not being back yet, and they're now about a month and a half away from getting him back.
And like, there's some real flaws too, right? That Clay obviously will help out with. But
That's an incredible. I mean, when Clay comes back, Jordan Poole goes to the bench,
6-man.
and then Andrew Wiggins has been really good for them. Maybe the COVID vaccine gave him superpowers. I don't know. And they haven't even really. I mean, Kuminga played for his first time ever last night against the Thunder. We still have not seen James Wiseman. I don't know if he's injured. I haven't paid that much of attention to it, but there's still other things they could kind of unlock here. Like,
Yes.
I don't think this is a hot take, Taylor. I don't know. You tell me. Are the Warriors, like, is their percentage chance of making it to the finals, like, has it actively climbed the past 2 weeks?
Yeah. No, I think so.
Preseason to now?
Like you said, based
I
on
know
the
a lot
performance
still
of the guys
hinges
they
on
have
Clay,
now.
but I feel
Right.
much more confident about making a proclamation that the Golden State Warriors could be in the Western Conference Finals. I mean,
If you get an 80% Clay, I think that's
yeah.
add that
I
to
mean,
the
shit. It's
team.
not like the Lakers are impressing you.
Right.
Right.
And I think they will get together still. But no, I'm with you. The Suns have had early struggles after we thought they'd come in with all their synergy from last season. They haven't looked super impressive. The Nuggets are right there at 4-2, right?
Which is also
interesting.
surprising with no Jamal Murray.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see kind of how like teams like them, and maybe the biggest surprise is Timberwolves. We can get into that, but
The
just
Timberwolves
before we-
started last year hot too. I'm not buying into the Timberwolves yet,
Okay.
but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued. I love watching.
And
They're,
I like
they're playing a
watching
much
them.
more fun brand of basketball.
They're fun to watch, and they maybe have the player with the best quotes in the league.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards is like the perfect interview.
They
awesome.
asked him about Giannis scoring the ball, and he said, "Man, that muffa is like 7'2", 280 pounds. Shit, we could put
You
the whole
weren't
team
stopping
on him.
him.
He's still scoring.
Yeah, I love that.
He is hilarious.
Before we move on,
He's effing good.
too much. The last thing I wanted to say about the Warriors is just that, like, I'm just curious how much they value one championship, like being this season or like next season, compared to
like trading some of
championships
those
long term.
trading
Right.
some of those kids.
You mentioned Kaminga, obviously James Wiseman.
Moody's got some burn early
Moody.
on. He's kind of in the rotation.
You can trade some of those guys and get a very talented another piece, championship piece for this championship contender. But then you lose all of your long term.
And I think they would prefer just to ride the season out as it is what it is type of thing.
too.
But man, if Clay comes back and can play, that team gets very scary very quickly.
I agree.
Because that's the Utah Jazz's nightmare in the playoffs.
My gosh.
I mean, just throw Draymond at the 5. He can guard Rudy Gobert.
I was going to say,
and at the other end, Draymond's just going to run dribble handoffs and get guys wide open for threes as Rudy drops and doesn't.
But on the bench,
yeah,
I'm not sure he could play in that series.
I mean, that's Utah's nightmare.
So we talked about the Timberwolves. I agree that a super fun team that are exceeding expectations. The Kings kind of fall in a similar boat there so far.
Kings are like 27th in the league in defense, though. It's pretty on brand.
Some of that seems like
I would expect that to kind of level off as
Lakers off to a slow start, which we kind of expected. The Blazers is a fun one to keep an eye on right there at 3-3, just because if things go south, what happens?
Memphis is also a fun one to keep an eye on. John Morant's been great, and all you hear is he's made the leap. And they're 3-3. They're still at 500, nothing to write home about yet. Ja has been freaking incredible, though.
It's insane.
He's
and then he
good.
has guys
that
like Desmond Bain, second-year player Desmond Bain stepping up. D'Anthony Melton playing really well for them. So they have a really Steven Adams has looked really good with his offense.
Good for him, man.
Steve-O.
And then Taylor, I think we'll end with the team in last place in the West.
Yes, that's what I was going to bring
the
up.
New Orleans Pelicans. We have had a Zion Williams sighting.
Oh my!
A lot of people got the mentions and just tweeted gifs of penguins walking because they're so fat they have to waddle.
I mean, Kamiar's hottest takes of all of his hot takes that he had, I thought was going to be the most ridiculous, and that's why it was the most funny. Fat Julius Randle, but oh my god, the accuracy of that hot take. I mean, what Julius Randle did last season is still doing this season, and then seeing Zion this season before he even plays a game. Kamiar was onto something, and I love it.
That man does not look like he lost weight.
He looks like Jake. I can't believe I didn't send this to you. I briefly went past it and I didn't send it to you guys, and I wish I would have. But I saw a tweet after last night's game where RJ broke his career high. He set a new career high. Who did they play last night?
RJ
Barrett.
Sorry. Okay.
With the Knicks. I can't even remember who the Knicks played last night. That's terrible. Anyways, he sets a new career high. Actually, I think I have this pulled up because it makes the joke way funnier. So they play the Pelicans. Speaking of the Pelicans, they play the Pelicans.
Okay.
So they play the Pelicans. RJ has a career high with 35 points. And I saw a tweet of somebody that said, former teammates RJ and Zion. RJ drops 35 points or drops 35. Zion could or what's the word I'm looking for there? I can't. It's off the top of my head. RJ
Taylor, you're ruining this joke, man.
It's bad, but basically saying that Zion could, it should drop
35 pounds. Gotcha. There you go. Not good delivery in the punchline there. But we'll forgive you, Taylor. Awesome. Any more thoughts before we get out of here for the night, Taylor?
Week ahead for OKC. They finished their West Coast trip, right? They play the Clippers tomorrow night at 9:30, and then they
Lakers
play
on Wednesday.
The Lakers, on Wednesday. And then do they play next Friday? Is that right? Or is it Saturday?
They do play Sunday night against the Spurs.
Okay,
so it's
Sunday against the Spurs.
It's Clippers on Monday, Lakers on Thursday, Spurs on Sunday. So it's only a 3-game week.
Tell me your predictions for the week.
1-2, man. 1-2. Win a week. That's what I said at the beginning of the season. A week.
I'm going win a week as well. I think it will be against the Spurs, which means that they'll probably win tomorrow night against Golden State. Against the Clippers.
I'm taking the Clippers. Clippers win tomorrow night. They lose against.
I'll take the Spurs, but that's the way too obvious.
Touche. Well, hey, thank you guys for joining the podcast. If you're on the live stream tonight, shout out to you, man. We appreciate you guys for jumping on, hanging out with us. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, thanks so much. Make sure to go drop a 5-star rating. Hey, if you do drop a 5-star rating, screenshot that bad boy, type something up in the review, send that screenshot to @the_uncontested on Twitter. I'll mail you some free Uncontested stickers. I've got like 10 envelopes ready to go out tomorrow. Get in on it before the stickers are gone. They're dope. They're so cool. I'll shoot you a few stickers if you shoot us a 5-star rating. Make it happen. As mentioned just a second ago, Thunder have 3 games this week. We will have post-game pods for you after Monday's game against the Clippers and Thursday's game against the Lakers. Then next Sunday after the Spurs game, we will be live again right here at 9 p.m. Central Time for our weekly live stream. Make sure to join us and hang out. If you're on the live stream right now, Taylor's got the stickers pulled up on an image. They're dope. They're clean. They're holographic like that Charizard you always wanted. Make it happen. Until tomorrow, when we will see you guys again, take it easy. Have a great beginning of your week. And we'll talk to you soon. Thunder up.
Thunder out.